The same year Hindal was born, the fortress of Bajaur in modern-day Pakistan capitulated to Babur's besieging army. By 1525, Babur had assembled a host 25,000 strong, intent on invading and claiming India for himself. He intended on using the instability of the Delhi Sultanate to his advantage, in order to defeat his enemies in turn. Babur traveled along the same route of invasion which Timur and Alexander the Great used for their expeditions into the Indian subcontinent. Reading Babur's autobiography, one can't help but notice the similarities between his invasion of India and the Spanish invasion of the Aztec or Incan empires. Babur called India a, quote, new world, unquote, and was constantly awestruck by the diverse animals and greenery he discovered on his campaigns. He constantly refers to what he considers the quote-unquote backwardness and ugliness of India and Indians. Additionally, he looked back fondly on his conquests, describing the land as quote-unquote empty before his family's arrival, which is a classic motif in almost all settler colonial projects. Finally, his conquests were justified as holy wars, since most of his opponents followed different religions. He was seemingly committed to his faith. He instituted the jizya tax against non-Muslims. He desecrated quote-unquote profane Jain temples, and he proclaimed himself a Ghazi, or a fighter for the faith. He wrote, quote, "For the sake of Islam, I became a vagabond. I fought with the Hindus and with many heathens. I was ready to die as a martyr, but thanks to God, I became a hero of the faith." Unquote. Arrayed against Babur and his small but elite army were as many as 100,000 warriors and upwards of 1,000 war elephants of the Delhi Sultanate. This North Indian state had seen better days. The country was in the middle of a disastrous and bloody civil war. Babur was seemingly at a disadvantage, but he had several major factors working in his favor. The first was his team of Persian and Ottoman advisors who had introduced matchlock muskets and pre-modern artillery into Babur's army. Another advantage for the invaders was their superior knowledge of military tactics. After years of trial and error, Babur had refined his art of war into a precise science. He implemented quote-unquote Roman techniques, which utilized dug-in entrenchments and wagon loggers. These were wagons, armed with cannon and then latched together, which created a near impenetrable wall against enemy cavalry charges. Andrew de la Garza says that in this system, defensive entrenchments were key and, quote, the shovel was nearly as important as the musket, unquote. This turned Babur's armies into relatively mobile forts, which could swiftly deploy for a rapid defense. Finally, what set Babur's armies apart from others was his ability to combine these Roman defensive tactics with his cavalry advantage. This gave Babur an incredibly strong center, with infantry arrayed in 3 separate formations, the vanguard, the center, or the reserve. Meanwhile, Babur's flanks were secured by elite horse archers and shock cavalry units from Central Asia. This combined strategy of Asian and European warfare would influence the entirety of the Indian subcontinent until the early colonial period. The First Battle of Panipat would demonstrate this clearly. Babur had been harassing and skirmishing with Sultan Ibrahim's men all through April of 1526. They were trying to goad him into attacking their fortified wagon camp. Babur had chosen a magnificent spot to defend. One of his flanks was protected by a huge river, and he had his center protected by 700 different interlocking wagons. On April 20th, Sultan Ibrahim and his 100,000 lost their patience and launched a full-on frontal assault all along Babur's line. Babur may have had only 10,000 men on hand. The rest of his army was spread throughout the width of modern-day northwest India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Leading the charge for Ibrahim were his massive war elephants. These elephants proved perfect targets for Babur's matchlock men and his artillery. Many of the animals, alongside their crews, were killed in this initial charge. Ibrahim's cavalry followed close behind and became bogged down amongst the wagons and the corpses of pachyderms. Those in front attempted to retreat, while those behind attempted to surge forward. This created a quagmire of living and dead elephants, horses, and human bodies, who were constantly being picked off by Babur's small arms and mortar fire. It was at this crucial moment that Babur unleashed his own cavalry at the flanks of Ibrahim's unwieldy army. Very rapidly, the men in the middle of this maw retreated. The battle was now a full-blown massacre. 15,000 men alongside Sultan Ibrahim lay dead on the field by the end of the day. Babur established himself in Agra as the new king of Hindustan.